we've covered a lot of basic ideas. We dealt with skis and how skis have evolved and changed to the new modern skis. We've talked a little bit about the evolution of the low leather boot and the modern ski boot today. And we've talked to how some of the techniques that were functional with the older equipment have hung on past their usefulness. A lot of what we spoke about was the biomechanics of how to get pressure to the right place on the ski, where is the right place on the ski, what the side cut does, and how to be able to use that side cut to have the ski take us where we want to go on the hill. But still, you see people that have certain habits, you might call them styles of skiing, but also differences, and many people have a different turn. On one side is a better turn than the other, and don't really know what might account for that. So when we talk about alignment, we'll see how some of those things might be attributable or are attributable to alignment with the modern ski boot. When we first start to deal with alignment, first thing that we have to do is deal with the equation I refer to as a rotary equation. In other words, what we have to do to stabilize the foot and allow it to work in the manner that it should. And to do that, we start with a footbed. And the purpose of the footbed really is to put the foot into what we refer to as a neutral position. By that I mean it allows the foot to be in a home-based position that either allows it to pronate, as we know the pronation unlocks the bones of the foot and makes the foot adaptive, or to resupinate, and the resupination allows the bones to re-engage and create a compact foot that you can use as a lever. We talked about the idea of gait and how the foot works as we go through the walking cycle, and why we want the foot in a position of what we refer to as just at heel off in the propulsive phase of gait. The idea of pronation, and many people, as we mentioned, talk about starting the turn with rolling the ankle. We know now that the ankle only rolls when the whole leg rotates. So when I'm talking about a footbed, the purpose is to put the foot in a position that it's stable, and very small movements one way or the other either unlock the bones of the foot or tighten and engage the bones of the foot. Without that, if a person's a pronator, then as we get inside the boot, the foot is loose and the tendency is to buckle down on top of the foot. When that happens, what happens is the bones of the foot find a way to get to the bottom of the boot. For that to happen, the leg has to rotate internally. So we want to stabilize or take that rotation out of the equation. So the idea is to get a footbed in, can be adjusted to correct for a person that pronates too much, and allows that foot to be in that neutral position so they can access either pronation to unlock the foot or the resupination that we know is so necessary to be able to maintain pressure on the first metatarsal without misaligning the bones of the body. The other issue dealing with a rotary part of the equation is the ski boot, and the thing that's referred to many times as a canting adjustment. Many times it's on both sides of the upper part of the boot, and the purpose of that is to really not to cant the boot, but to allow the boot cuff to match the shape of the leg. So if someone has a leg shape that's more comes in from the outside, then we want to move that cuff to the outside or more vertical to match the shape of the leg. If we can't move that cuff enough, and this is a situation where that occurred, this person, even though we moved the cuff as far as we could for them, when they were buckled into the boot shaft forced their leg slightly into this position. That position of rotation unlocked, as we know, pronated the foot and unlocked the bones of the foot and took pressure off the ball of the foot. So as a correction for that, we actually added a medial pad to the inside to balance the leg inside the shaft of the boot, so the leg was not pushed into that rotation, which would unlock the bones of the foot. So cuff alignment to match the shape of the leg. If that's not enough, then by padding the sides of the liner, we can make a correction for that. Again, those two things deal with what we refer to as a rotational part of the ski equation. The next thing that we talk about is canting, and I know it's been around for a number of years. It's an issue that is really misunderstood. One of the problems with it is this. If a person has a rotational problem, in a sense is knock-kneed, many people look at that and say, well, they're too far inside, we need to cant them to make the correction. But I think now you realize that rotary is a different part of the equation. We need to correct for the rotated position, knock-kneed position, with the footbed and the cuff alignment before we deal with what's called canting. Canting is part of the equation that I refer to as a lateral equation. And really the best way to think about it is canting determines when the ski comes onto edge. What part of the movement pattern does the ski engage the snow? If it engages too soon, the problem that we see is in balancing above that is that we see body positions that are compromised, not ideal to the positions we're looking for. In a situation like this, if a person is, we refer to it as over-edged, in other words, as they move laterally, again, remember we've stabilized the rotary part of the equation with the footbed and the cuff. Now as they move laterally to move the center of mass inside the radius of the new turn, the ski engages too soon. The skier has to flatten that edge a little bit because it's turning too much already. So their solution, instead of moving inside with angulation by moving the center of mass in, the solution is to move the head and shoulders into the turn. So what we would like to do with someone is, if we see head and shoulders moving in, what's referred to as inclination or banking, is we find that that is contributed to by an over-edge condition down at the snow. The person is literally doing the proper movement to balance on the ski edge so that it engages at the proper time. If we change the canting by removing the inside edge, we do it by shaving the boot sole to change the angle of the boot relative to the snow. It used to be done with cant strips. You might not be able to see this, but it's a wedge strip that used to be installed underneath the binding. Okay, so those two things really are rotary, which is the knock-kneed position or the cuff alignment, and then canting is when does the ski engage and come on edge. If it comes on edge too soon, the solution for the skier is to bank and get mass inside with as little edge as possible. If we make the correction with the canting to the proper position, then the skier can engage the ball of the foot, counter to resupinate the foot, maintaining pressure on the inside edge, and then move laterally and have the ski come on the edge at the right time. So the difference is too much edge too soon. The solution is outside hand up and banking, mass inside the radius, or if we can get the canting proper, the movement pattern will just be center of mass inside. So those are two things that we deal with when we align boots: rotary part of the equation and the lateral movement part of the equation.